I'll call Christine and say, you really should come and speak at this conference. Now, many of you may not know McCain Foods, but I'm sure you've bought French fries at McDonald's or you've bought, onion rings at, our local fast food. And the secret starts with Christine. McCain Foods, she's going to tell the story of an agricultural products company that's using analytics to improve the quality of compliance. And I'm so glad to have you come. Come on up, Christine. Christine Wentworth.
Thank you, Laura. That was a very nice introduction. So I'm Christine Wentworth from McCain Foods. Let's see if I can do this. What is Vice President of Agriculture? I own the farm to factory supply chain. So that's the front end innovation of new variety development for all of the vegetable products that we use for our substrates, and the contracting with farmers directly and the supply into the plants. But who is McCain Foods? So pop quiz, what outcome are we selling? Anybody? Mm-hmm. Correct. More? Connections around food. How you feel when you are at the table with your family, enjoying good food, good conversation, good relationships. We are selling moments. So we aren't the healthiest on the planet, but we are sharing moments. So, what's better in life than getting an onion ring in your order of French fries? It's an entire order of onion rings, delicious and crispy. So what does it take to bring a field of raw onions from the field to the factory with all of a raw onion's natural variability to create such a fun, fabulous food that delights people and provides consistent, quality product at a reasonable cost? We know how to do that at McCain by producing millions of servings to happy customers every year. Because as the world's largest manufacturer of frozen French fries, potato specialties, and appetizers, including onions and the iconic jalapeno popper, yes, it's ours, McCain products can be found in restaurants, retail outlets in 160 countries worldwide. But we asked ourselves, how can we be even better? How can we be even better in an environment where our data was gathered manually and stored separately in siloed databases that gave our employees limited visibility across the supply chain to make the right decisions for our customers every day? So we chose to partner with ThinkIQ to help us link our disparate data sources to provide visibility to our people. We chose ThinkIQ because of their deep understanding of manufacturing with a strong analytics platform and a vision for the future that aligned with McCain's vision and strategy. But every journey begins with a single step. And McCain's journey was to ask our first, most important question: how can we understand in a more granular fashion what onion attributes contribute to plant performance and customer quality compliance? We thought we knew this. We had done studies for decades on onion ring manufacturing, onion ring growing. But we realized we didn't have the methods to understand this in real time, where onion quality data in the field was gathered on pieces of paper, brought into the raw grading area, compiled for grades, and stapled onto 1-ton pound bags going to our plants. So our first step was to digitize our crop data that was manually gathered, very rarely used. We realized in order to gather meaningful data, we needed to install sensors in our raw data gathering area and automatically gather enough objective data about the onions for accuracy and reliability. And then to connect that information with our production systems to try to make sense of it all. By digitizing the raw onion data and connecting it with our production controls, we began to establish correlations that we hadn't seen before. This led to more questions about equipment setup, about the accuracy and validity of our data, both in the agriculture sector and operations, about our scheduling practices, about our agronomic methods, in specific scenarios under numerous conditions that we could begin to start to answer. And the second most important question was why? Why do these correlations exist? And how can we manage our converting processes more effectively with the onion attributes Mother Nature gave us that season? This led to more IoT sensors and better controls, but more importantly, more questions why. And the correlations and the questions and the requests for more sensors in new areas continue. We expect these questions and requests to continue and evolve to drive ever more understanding and focused collaboration within our supply chain. So one simple question: what raw onion attributes affect operations and consumer compliance, and investment in linking our disparate information systems has led to an employee movement. A movement to know why, and a grassroots employee culture change to become more data-driven, self-directed, and agile. So are we there yet? No. We will never be there yet. Because as we continuously strive to be even better, and changes in our substrates, in onion varieties, in onion growing practices, in our production system changes, and our consumer preferences, we will continuously need to ask the question why. And the future is bright for our business and our employees. one step, one question of how to be even better has taken us on a journey of 1,000 miles. That journey is driven by our employee base, who requests and requires more information and tools that we believe will pull us into a more advanced digital environment, into a digital environment more organically as we mature in our understanding of our business and our customers. And even more importantly, our end-use consumers who will require more of us in the future to understand where their food came from, who grew it, how it was handled across the supply chain. So what does the future look like? Infinity and beyond. Thank you.
I want to talk to you, Christine, about your journey. Where did the leadership come from for this journey? Because I remember talking to McCain Foods in 2004, and this was not their vision, right? How did this transformation happen? Where was the leadership?
Well, we talked a lot in my group yesterday about food waste. And the amount of waste in creating an onion ring is tremendous. From the time it is planted to the time it turns into an onion ring, there's about 60% waste. That's amazingly poor.
Yeah.
And so it was driven from the need to increase demand without increasing our acreage, without increasing our production capacity.
And if you think about all of the issues we have of feeding the world, you know, and all the waste that we have in the food supply chain, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to redesign the supply chain, right?
Absolutely.
And is there anything you can share about the results you've had on that journey in terms of improving waste?
Yeah, absolutely. We have improved yield in the factory by 8%, which is significant. From a growing standpoint, we don't have those analytics yet, but the growers are very interested in understanding what the waste is from their end.
And so you have the ecosystem with the growers established.
Yes.
You own that ecosystem, which is consistent with the discussions. But this automation of the factory where you're bringing in signals that you haven't used before and you're bringing in information that you haven't used before, how did you fund that? You know, most of the time, people that are on that journey want to go on that journey, but they search for how do they fund and how do they get leadership support. How did that happen at McCain?
So Laura, that's a really important point because although our employees were acting in an agile manner, management and leadership was not. And so our capital process is very waterfall approached, very slow, and to be able to even get in a $10,000 sensor, it was going through the same process of a $300,000 investment. So we haven't totally solved that. We are on our way to solving that. But when there's demands for more data, we have to act more agilely as leaders.
And what have you learned about that journey? I mean, you may not be all the way to Bright, but you're a lot further along than a lot of people. What have you learned about that journey of moving from that traditional funding process where you've got to have a very well-established ROI, go through a capital process, to agile learning? What can you share?
Well, although it seems like we are to Bright, it certainly was not that way. The people aspect of this is extremely important. The data, absolutely, yes, that's a piece of it, but it is more about the change management. It is more about the people being given the freedom to make decisions within some guidelines and boundaries and letting them continue to ask the question why. I want to bring up, I brought a book with me that has been very important for me to understand how to think about this and to have my leadership think about the people aspect, and it's called The Technology Fallacy, How People Are the Real Key to Digital Transformation. This was written by studies from MIT Sloan Business School and Deloitte. It's been one of my favorites and my guide to how to think about the people aspect differently.
So if you abstract the key insights from the book, what spoke to you?
Providing the freedom to operate within boundaries and clear guidelines and decision making.
Freedom to operate within boundaries. And what boundaries did you set?
Well, the first was that there had to be good questions versus an ROI. There had to be a well-established question that needed to be answered. There needed to be the use of the data to say why you were interested in learning more about the relationship between X and Y. Here is a good example. In onion rings, you want to have nice concentric rings. But there is an anomaly that happens with onion rings called mazing, that if you've ever sliced open an onion where the rings are not concentric. And we thought that this was a very bad thing, but we found under certain conditions where we were running the factory and the different products that it was actually giving us positive results. So another example, so now everyone's going to be looking at their onion rings.
Absolutely.
Is or their onions multiple centers, where have you ever seen where an onion has two centers? And this was expected to be a very poor thing, and it actually, in certain conditions and product run sequencing, it was actually a positive.
So ask why, be clear on the problem, use data, drive outcomes. Is that a fair restatement of the insights?
And drive outcomes even if the outcome leads you to a different place. So we've had to be a lot more, understanding that to allow people freedom to operate and to innovate, it's not always going to be the answer that you thought it would be.
So at a leadership level, you've got to let that path shift, right? So being open to outcomes at a leadership level to let that work progress.
Absolutely, and what we're finding is the employee base is pushing the management and leadership there. So we're going to have to figure out how to work more agilely as well.
And how about reward systems? Did you do anything on the reward systems to shine a light on people that were using data best or solving problems the best?
You know, we found that doing this was the reward in itself. Giving people control over their processes and the areas that they own was the reward. And so we haven't felt the need to do that yet.
Okay. Well, let's give Christine a hand. We're going to bring Christine up with Procter & Gamble, our next speaker, to answer some more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.